So, you lusted after the limited edition hardcore BMW M4 GTS until they told you that they were all pre-sold and that it only had 2 seats. The next option, obviously, was the BMW M3, but you wanted something a bit more special, a bit more exclusive, perhaps with some track credentials. Which brings us to this car, the BMW M3 Competition Pack. The M3 is the more practical 4-door alternative to the fire-breathing M4 coupe, but it's often forgotten in the shadow of its more illustrious stablemate, which isn't really fair given its ability to link 4-door practicality to unequivocal M-style performance. In some ways, its slightly understated and underrated reputation makes the M3 the perfect recipient of the competition pack, which elevates power output but keeps maximum torque the same. A revised adaptive suspension, bigger wheels and fatter tyres are also part of the pack. Compared to the M4, the 4-door M3 looks quite understated and pretty normal, and that despite the flared wheel arches, the hungry air intakes and the aerodynamic body kit. This competition pack gets a bit more attitude thanks to the 20-inch wheels and the lower ride height, but it's still more of a stealth machine than a spotlight stealer. That slight measure of understatement suits the sedan, even if there's never any doubt that it's an M car. The car's aggression is unmistakable, but it's tempered by the 4-door configuration and the brand's premium status. Close up, the distinguishing details are more obvious. The black-tipped exhaust tailpipes confirm the presence of an M Sport exhaust with a raucous soundtrack to match, while the reduced ride height allows a lower, tar-hugging stance. Gloss black exterior detailing is applied throughout. The cabin confirms that this is still a premium sports sedan. Compared to the stripped-out hardcore M4 GTS, the cockpit of this M3 competition pack finds a nice balance between refined and racy. The seats in particular are nice and supportive. The carbon fibre trim adds a nice racy touch as well, but there's a lot of safety kit and a lot of luxury as well. As mentioned, the 4-door configuration makes the M3 a very feasible if rapid family car with easy access to the rear bench seat and ample rear legroom. At 480 litres, the boot easily swallows a full complement of luggage too. The comprehensive list of standard equipment adds to the Beamer's comfort and convenience and covers all the key luxury items, from electric seats and a parking camera to sat-nav, remote central locking and adaptive cruise control. However, what lurks under this car's bonnet is special. On paper, one of the biggest differences between the standard M3 and this competition pack version is the engine. The power has been uprated from 317 kilowatt to 331 kilowatt. That's 14 kilowatt more, but torque remains the same at 550 newton meters. The transmission still a 7-speed M-DCT dual-clutch transmission and drive, of course, to the rear wheels only. Even though it's turbocharged, the engine has a stirring sound, partly because it revs with such enthusiasm and partly because of the way it snaps, crackles and pops on a trailing throttle. Indeed, there's nothing understated about that exhaust note. With just 4% of additional power, the difference in straight-line performance between the standard M3 and this competition pack version is always going to be only marginal, and the figures actually prove it. BMW says this car gets from 0 to 100 in 4 seconds dead. The standard M3 does it in 4.1 seconds. Top speed also higher, 280 kilometers an hour, while the standard car is limited to 250 kilometers an hour. At more than 215 kilowatt per ton, mid-range urge is impressive, assisted by the rapid, almost percussive shift action of the M-DCT gearbox. Even in 5th gear, the swift sedan only needs 4.3 seconds to accelerate from 80 to 120 kilometers an hour. Behind the wheel, the biggest difference between this car and the standard M3 is the way it handles. There have been a lot of changes to the suspension, different damper settings, different springs, stiffer anti-roll bars. The whole car feels lower and tauter, also more aggressive. The steering certainly more pointy, sharper and more confidence-inspiring, and the M differential has been recalibrated as well. The bottom line with this car is it's a lot of fun to drive. This competition pack version of the M3 might be quicker and more powerful, but it also seems less edgy and more enjoyable. It's a car that begs for fast country roads and challenging mountain passes, and it's ultimately more rewarding to drive than the standard car, even if the stiffer setup compromises ride refinement. The BMW M3 competition pack is actually more Mr. Hyde than Dr. Jekyll. Yes, it is a rather understated four-door sedan, and yes, it only has 4% more power. But on the move, this car feels much more uncompromising, much more agile, much more aggressive than the standard M3. It's very much a driving machine, but at a price that guarantees it'll be an exclusive one as well. With more power, a firmer suspension and recalibrated electronics, the M3 Competition Pack is a further step up from the standard M3 in dynamic terms. It sounds the part too. The revised suspension adds composure and confidence, but impacts on overall ride refinement. But all those pluses come with a big jump in asking price.